presentation, but there will be some time afterwards for you to ask questions. Right, so I will we'll get the presentation started. If I can pass you over to Jen and Maria, who are here from the Norfolk and Suffolk Nature Recovery Partnership. They are going to be your presenters for the evening. We hope that you enjoy the presentation and think of lots of lovely, easy questions for them at the end. And so, right, we'll start the presentation.
Brilliant. Okay, looks like that's working now. Thank you very much, Kevin, and thank you, Sarah. And thank you, everybody, for allowing us to kind of convene this special meeting all about the LNRS. My aim today is to introduce it to you, to explain what LNRS really is, to think about where we're at with the project, and to describe how you can get involved. So you've got me initially. So I'm Jen Burlingham. I'm the Nature Recovery Partnership Manager for both Norfolk and Suffolk. So I work really closely with the teams across both counties for doing this. I'm technically employed by Suffolk County Council, but the partnership works across both counties, which I'll explain a little bit more about in a moment. We've also got Maria here, who's going to do some of the presentations, so it's not just you listening to me for the next 20 minutes. As Sarah said, there will be an opportunity for questions at the end. Obviously, if you think of something while we're presenting, please put it in the chat, and then we can address it, or we can take kind of questions from the floor at any point. We are obviously very open throughout the whole process to having other people involved with this, so there'll be a way that you can get in contact with us and to sort of raise questions after the event as well if you'd like to. So if we can move on to the next screen, that would be brilliant. Thank you very much. So what I wanted to do to start off with is really introduce a few of the key people that are involved with this project, so that if you do get in contact or you see it referred to in other ways, you'll know really who's involved. So as I've mentioned, it involves both county councils, and so we have two heads of department who are basically our sponsors and are in charge of the project from a very strategic point of view, and really act as kind of the governance within the sector. So they are Wendy and Tim. So they're head of environment and head of natural environment. If we then look at the next two people on the slide, Maria is here tonight. So Maria Theodoraki is our project manager within Norfolk County Council, and Claire is our project manager in Suffolk. And their responsibility is more of the kind of operational aspects of the strategy and the production of the document. And that's where their key focus is at the moment with their projects. We do have other members of the team across both councils who kind of dip in and out and do very specific roles, because there's lots and lots of skills that are involved for this. Next slide, please. So the partnership itself was actually established before the LNRS requirement was introduced, and we'll explain what that requirement is. But the partnership was really an outcome of the 2021 Environment Act and the 25-year plan which Norfolk County Council and Suffolk County Council have. So the partnership brings together lots and lots of organisations with a key aim, which is nature recovery. So my role is to manage that partnership. So I have to think about the collaboration, the communication, who's involved, how we actually get to the aims that we need to, get the right outcomes, and think about projects and how that will be implemented in the future. So the partnership has regular meetings and again has lots and lots of involvement from lots of different areas, but with very much a nature and wildlife focus. So if we go on to the next screen, I'll show you some of those individuals. I've been in the role since April this year, so I have been had a couple of predecessors essentially who have set up this programme and really have a really good foundation to build on. My background varies from education to working for Essex Wildlife Trust and community engagement, alongside some research essentially, so research science. So all of those skills hopefully come together to really bring this collaboration together. You can see on there a list of a few of the organisations who are involved with the partnership, and I'll just talk through kind of their involvement and what they do and why they're so important, but this isn't everybody, there's obviously a lot more. In the forefront are the two county councils, so they've really convened the partnership and put it all together. But alongside those, we have all the supporting authorities. So each district for each county also have representation. And that is really, really important when we think about how all the decisions are made and where we look at the governance and where all of the policies come in. Obviously in Norfolk and Suffolk, we have the amazing Broads. So we have a national park. It is our only national park and they have the specific authority. So they are a really big part of this as well. As you would expect, we have representation from the NGOs and the wildlife trusts are predominant there, but we also have links to National Trust, RSPB, Plant Life and lots of other organisations, obviously all feeding in with their strategies and their policies and their work that they're doing. Within each council, we have national landscapes teams. National landscapes are what were previously referred to as areas of outstanding natural beauty. So those individuals have key skills, key work that they're doing, and again, their own strategies and focus on nature recovery and the processes that happen in those areas. As you can probably imagine, we have a lot of links to farming, agriculture and land use. And so we have close links with NFU and CLA to really foster those and make sure we're talking to the right people. That also comes in with FWAG, which is the Farming and Wildlife Advisory Group, and other groups such as Natural England, the Environment Agency and Forestry England. We have a really, really close relationship with Natural England. They are kind of our conduit in terms of links from DEFRA and advice and how we can ensure that we're compliant with this process. And Natural England do have to sign off the work that we do and we produce from this partnership. So we have really regular meetings and lots of learning, both from them, the other organisations and all the other counties and groups that are involved with producing LNRSs in other areas. Also listed on here are the two biodiversity information services and the University of East Anglia, and they've been really instrumental in producing a document called the Capital Compendium for Norfolk and Suffolk, which has acted a bit like a baseline for habitats and species, the geology, everything that goes on essentially across Norfolk and Suffolk to really help us to understand what we have as our nature background, and then we can work on that and think about where we go in the future. So if we go on to the next slide, please. Thank you. So obviously we need to think about why we're in this situation, what it is that we're doing and why we feel like we need to have nature recovery. So East Anglia is amazing. It has very, very unique habitats, species, lots and lots of different interactions and ecosystems. And we have to recognise that. And as I say, it's very unique and we need to look after it. We also know that it has very specific pressures, so lots and lots of focus on climate change, soil quality, water quality. The whole southeast and East Anglia particularly are under a lot of those pressures. And we know that unfortunately we have a lot of species in decline. We know our designated spaces for wildlife at the moment are actually not working. It's very commonly mentioned that we're one of the most nature depleted countries in the world. And so we need to do something to actually improve what we call the nature networks. So how can nature recover? How can it bounce back? How can it have more resilience? There's a little bit of information on the slide here to talk about the species that are in decline. So we recognise 43% of birds, 31% of amphibians and reptiles, and 28% of fungi and lichen are in decline. And that's just a snapshot. Obviously, there's decline across every single group of living organisms. And one of the reasons for this, we know, is due to fragmented landscapes. So the picture at the top kind of shows you what a fragmented landscape is. So something with lots of very separate different habitats, not a lot of coalescence there, and animals can't actually survive there very well because they can't show resilience, they can't adapt, they can't think about how they can make those slight changes to focus on when climate change happens, or if something happens in their environment, they can't move around, they can't have that chance. So we need to think about having more connected nature networks, and that's where we have habitats and landscapes that are very much more joined together. Lots and lots of corridors, the ability for organisms to move, a mosaic of habitats as well, so lots and lots of variety and increase in biodiversity there. And that's what we need to start thinking about how we're going to achieve that. So on the next slide, please. that's where the LNRS really comes in. So the local nature recovery strategy is a mandatory strategy. So every single area of England will be producing one. As we've said, we are working with Suffolk and Norfolk County Council. So we're what are called responsible authorities. So there are 48 of them across the whole country. And those responsible authorities have been designated to actually produce a strategy. And that strategy will be a document that is referred to actually improve nature for people and wildlife. So it'll be something that can be used in lots and lots of different applications, which Maria will talk about in a little bit in a moment. We have to have agreement for these strategies. So we have to go through the normal process of producing it, consultation, lots and lots of engagement, which we're doing at the moment, and making sure everybody gets their chance to actually input into what happens in the strategy. And it's linked into what's called the Lawton Principle. So Lawton produced a report in 2010, which was called The State of Nature. And the overall summary from that was that we need more, bigger and better habitats. So more of them, bigger, improved habitats, and more connected as well. And that's where we're aiming for. That's the kind of principles that we're working to. Next slide, please. Thank you. So we wanted to just give a brief overview of what some of the benefits of this nature recovery are, because it's not just about the animals, it's about lots and lots of different aspects as well. And we need to think about that on a human and social side too. So obviously East Anglia, Norfolk, Suffolk, very, very agricultural, really, really important that we maintain our food security, our food safety. So we need to think about where we've got pollination of our food crops coming in, thinking about our water and air quality, and then really important is soil health. Obviously without healthy soils, we're not going to get any of the growth and the support of the ecosystems from the ground up. We recognise that there's been obviously an increased amount of flooding and impact of all of those kind of flooding situations and climate change recently. So if we start to think about nature-based solutions, we can think about drainage systems, we can think about those sustainable development systems where actually we can maybe reduce that flooding and think about the stages and policies that can come in the future. We also have massive impacts in urban areas from improving and increasing nature. Just thinking about trees actually producing a cooling effect, obviously air quality there as well. Lots and lots of different factors and situations where nature can come in and work together to create a better environment. And we know there's a huge amount of documented evidence about the impacts of nature on physical and mental well-being and health. So that's a really important factor from our point of view as well, to make sure that we capture the input there. And then finally, as I say, this is a snapshot. This isn't all the benefits of nature recovery, but one is to capture carbon. If we're thinking about climate change resilience and ensuring that we're trying to keep carbon in the right place and not have a more negative impact as we go forward, then this habitat will help to do that. If we go to the next slide, please. This is where I'm going to hand over to Maria for a little bit. So she's going to explain kind of where we're at with the project.
Thanks, Jen. Yeah, so here you can see the key facts around LNRS. So the LNRS is a tool introduced by the Environment Act 2021 and was designed to guide action for improving nature locally for the benefit of wildlife and people. So the strategy will give local people and organizations an opportunity to have their say on what nature recovery should look like in their area and how it will be achieved. Its main outputs are a current description of Norfolk's nature and the local priorities for nature recovery, including priority species, habitats, and measures, and a local habitat map, which contains existing nature sites and habitats and locations of the priorities for future habitat improvement and restoration. As Jen already said, Norfolk County Council and Suffolk County Council have been appointed as the responsible authorities to prepare the LNRS for their respective counties, and we're working in partnership through the Norfolk and Suffolk Nature Recovery Partnership in recognition that some of our most important wildlife-rich spaces are shared by both counties. And the aim is to deliver the strategy by July 2025. Finally, the strategy will be used for shaping the Nature Recovery Network, a national network of wildlife-rich places to increase and restore nature. The Nature Recovery Network is a major commitment in the government's 25-year environment plan. It will also ensure that the nature recovery happens in the right places. It will be used for targeting biodiversity net gain funding in the areas where it will have the most positive benefit. And finally, as a spatial strategy, local planning policies will refer to it, and the LNRS will help making informed decisions around planning and development. And to be clear here, the LNRS is not aimed to be a blocker to planning and development, and equally, it can't influence decisions. We need to manage nature recovery alongside priorities and ensure sympathetic, strategic, high-quality mitigation is included using expertise and knowledge. And next slide, please. So here this slide is just to emphasize the fact that this is a special strategy. So we need to deal with lots of data. We have to produce a series of maps. And that will help like with biodiversity net gain and also like identifying potential locations for nature recovery. So you can see on the background of this slide, you know, the heat maps, like how some of the maps will look like. So I think, yeah, just to get an idea of how we work with data and maps. Next slide. So to deliver the LNRS, we're working with a wide range of stakeholders and experts. The Norfolk and Suffolk Nature Recovery Partnership Steering Group will provide guidance, expertise and advice in the development of the two LNRSs. Membership from this comes from supporting authorities, NGOs, DEFRA arm's length bodies and sectors such as farming, health and well-being and local councils, amongst others. We also have convened several themed working groups to support different areas of work. Whilst these groups convene separately, we're maintaining lines of communication to ensure that these are not siloed and that common themes and threads can be picked up across the groups and effectively problem solved where applicable. Themed working group membership, again, is drawn from the Norfolk and Suffolk Nature Recovery Partnership members, supporting authorities and wider sectors of society to meet the engagement requirements of the LNRS process. 4 groups operate jointly across Norfolk and Suffolk, with membership drawn from both counties. These are the Mapping Group, Water and Coast, Species and Biodiversity and Land Management. And then we have the 2 planning ones, separate for Norfolk and Suffolk, because we have different processes in terms of planning in both counties. Next slide, please. And here you can see our themed working groups in more detail. The main aim of the mapping group is to lead on the map-based elements of the LNRSs, including areas of existing biodiversity and conservation value, as well as priority areas with opportunities for new habitat creation and connectivity, where the recovery or enhancement of biodiversity could make a particular contribution to developing a local nature recovery network. We already created the areas for particular importance for biodiversity map for each county and will convene after the priority shortlisting period to create the areas of potential importance for biodiversity map. So lots of mapping, really. Then we have the land management group, which is about identifying priorities for the LNRS, as well as locations and opportunities for nature recovery delivery on the ground, through agriculture and other land use, using tools such as existing and new agri-environment schemes and other new markets around carbon and nutrient management. Linking into emerging planning tools like the biodiversity net gain, for which farmers and landowners will be key to successful implementation, is also a key objective of this group. Then we have the Water and Coast group, which will ensure that both county LNRSs fully take on board the risks and opportunities arising through freshwater and coastal environments. It will also link and align with the catchment-based approach and the flood and coastal erosion risk management agendas to ensure the LNRSs will be powerful tools for supporting working with nature through each of these mechanisms. Next slide, please. The Species and Biodiversity Group will focus on key species priorities and other individual takes linking to habitat priorities to ensure the LNRSs deliver maximum opportunity for the region's most threatened habitats and species. And this group will take a leading role in helping us to identify our eventual shortlist of priorities that the LNRS will be centered on. And finally, we have the two planning ones, one for Norfolk, one for Suffolk, which will contribute to the delivery of a single vision for nature recovery in Norfolk and Suffolk LNRS through the planning system in both counties. So it will also ensure that potential nature recovery tools within the planning world, such as biodiversity net gain, green infrastructure, and nutrient neutrality are aligned and linked to the LNRS opportunity mapping and outcomes. Next slide, please. But we don't stop there in terms of our engagement. So alongside our themed working groups, we're also delivering engagement with other sectors. We will be convening and join Norfolk and Suffolk Health, Wellbeing and Access Group to help advise us as we consider public access to nature within the LNRS. We will be inviting representatives from Norfolk and Suffolk local access forums and public rights of way, as well as representatives from the NHS and other health charities and organizations. We're also organizing separate business and recreation groups, working through our respective chambers of commerce to circulate invitations and coordinate, and this will cover a spectrum of businesses as possible and include representation across the counties. And here we are today, like through both the Norfolk and Suffolk Association of Local Councils, we are contacting really local councils to help share our surveys, and we're offering a webinar to you tonight, actually, to attend and understand more about LNRS. And finally, we're also contacting local green and nature community groups, as well as seldom heard groups, to promote again the public survey and invite them to join a webinar with more information around the strategy. And I think that's it for me. Next slide. Thank you very much.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Maria. So as Maria has indicated, alongside the process of actually creating the LNRS and the documentation and our kind of messages that are going out, we are really engaging as much as we possibly can. We're also, as I mentioned, really open for engagement for people to join our groups. So the steering group, the theme working groups, and the sector groups that we've discussed. If you yourselves feel that there is anyone else we're missing, or you feel that should be involved, please do let us know. We are very open to talk to anybody, because we feel like we want to talk to everybody about this and really make it really well known. We are realistic. We would love to be able to recover every single species and habitat, but we know that we have to create our priority lists and really make sure that we're focusing on the really high impact initially. We will obviously take everyone's view into account to do that. One of the ways we're gathering that information is by our surveys, which we'll talk about a little bit more on the next slide, and we'll share in the chat with you as well the links, and also the link to the website, which is the kind of go-to place for information at the moment. The website is a work in progress, but it will become more of a signposting area for information about the work that's going on, updates and news, links to our partners, as well as the kind of information about the team and really where you can find out more about what's happening with the process. We ourselves are attending other meetings and events, and again, if you have events in your area where you feel that this would be appropriate to be something as a discussion, we can come and talk to anybody and do extra presentations. We were recently at the Suffolk show. We will be at the Norfolk show at the end of the month. We're working with things like youth climate councils. We're at Open Farm the other day as well, so just trying to really get the LNRS as a kind of something that's in everybody's vernacular and is something recognised by everybody too. We do have separate emails for the two teams across Norfolk and Suffolk. As we've said, we're very much working together, sharing skills, but there will be two unique strategies. So therefore there are two teams. The Natural Norfolk at norfolk.gov.uk is the one to reach for Norfolk-based information, and obviously for Suffolk, it's LNRS at suffolk.gov.uk. So next slide, please. Thank you. And this is just to give you more information about these surveys. So these are currently open and live. As we say, we'll share the link. We would really appreciate that you yourselves complete the surveys if you haven't already, and also to share them more widely with your communities and your contacts, because as you say, we need as much information as possible. The information we gather will help to develop our long list of priorities. And from there, we refine further and further into our shortlist and where that initial focus will be. We also want to know what people's access to nature is like and their connection, what's important to them, where do they go to actually make that connection to nature and enjoy those different species. So there are some mapping questions in there as well, the opportunity for you to kind of put your favourite points down and to think about actually what are the actions, what are the measures we should be taking, how can we start to recover nature, what should be happening and where. They are available until the 14th of July, and there are separate surveys for the public and for land managers. So there's a subtle difference with this land manager survey in that we need to know a little bit more about the amount of land and the use of land, because as we mentioned earlier, land managers are really key in terms of actually the actions that will happen, because a lot of this will need to happen on their land. So we need to have buy-in and agreement as we go forward with that. And that's one of the reasons, again, why we're engaging with everybody at such an early stage. Again, these surveys are delivered separately through the two different councils with that one kind of key message, and the production of them has been very similar. So if you know anyone in Suffolk, please do share it as well, because we will gather all of that information. And I think we're now on to the last slide. So if we can just double check. Yep, that is us. So thank you very, very much again for listening, and we're now open to any questions that you may have.
Right, just to say thank you to Jen and Maria for a lovely presentation. And do we have any questions? Please unmute yourselves, put your hands up. So Andrew, you'd like to start us off?
Thanks, Sarah. And that's brilliant work you're doing. Fantastic. We've our parish has adopted a local nature recovery strategy of its own,
Brilliant.
which we did a couple of years ago based on the John Clare Countryside project, which is a really good kind of template. We've struggled to take it anywhere, partly because the biggest single thing that stands in the way of the nature recovery in our parish is farmland. We've kind of got arable wasteland. Half of our parish is an SSSI. The other half is arable kind of wasteland, really. And there's not likely to be much movement on that from having talked to the farmers and things like that. They don't want hedges, and the hedges that they have got, they kind of crucify. And so in our parish, the biggest single thing that would make an impact would be to be able to do something to stop the hedges being cut to nothing, and to actually do some planting of hedges. So I can see that you've got NFU and CLA on your list, but is that going to be targeted as part of your nature recovery strategy?
Yes, so new habitats, new creation of areas will be a really key focus if it comes through the process for all the questions from the survey and all the feedback we get. If that's what is needed and what will have the most impact, that's where the LNRS will start to focus and put that pressure on. Essentially, we will identify those areas that are suitable for that kind of process. We don't have a pot of money to fund that at this point. What will happen with the LNRS is we'll become a bit more of a signpost, and we'll support for groups applying for funding and thinking about where we can maybe make the action happen. From an agricultural point of view and the landowner's point of view, there's a lot of schemes coming. So things like the sustainable farming initiatives, the countryside stewardship schemes coming through, they're becoming more and more attractive for the farmers to actually perform these nature recovery aspects. And I think that's where the focus comes in with the LNRS and the process across the whole country, that actually that balance between using nature but still having a viable business is really important, and that's what we really need to promote. And as we've said, that's why we want to try and talk to as many landowners and farmers as possible to get them on board. We recognise we're not going to get everybody. We know that's fairly impossible, but if we can get the majority and we can start to think about having like the big pieces of the jigsaw in place, then we hope that more and more people will come on board. We'd really welcome you to plot what you feel is appropriate on our maps so that we can capture it, and then the more and more that we get of that, then obviously the more weight it's got behind it. I hope that answers your question a bit.
Very good, thank you. I've just got one more little comment.
Yeah.
You haven't got MPs on your list of people that you're engaging with. Are you engaging with people like Jerome Mayhew, who sits on DEFRA?
We obviously, DEFRA actually produce the LNRS, so it's a DEFRA funded program. So we do have the links to the area and the cabinet members. We do have conversations within the councils of all the relevant sort of senior authorities as well. So yeah, we do have buy-in, we do have discussions, and everything gets fed up to the appropriate members.
Right, thank you. Marvellous.
Okay,
Thank you very
no
much.
problem. Thank you.
Do you have any more questions? Anybody else want to raise something?
Can I just ask, is there maybe some kind of a template that you can send to parish councils with the sort of information that you would find helpful that we could complete and send back to you?
I suppose the survey will really help. Maria, is there anything else that we would need to send out? I don't know if we've had anything previously.
No, but we are looking for case studies in terms of nature recovery, recovery all across Norfolk. So if you're doing anything nice, like good for nature recovery in your area, we can send you a template where you can fill in and like talk about like what you're doing.
Have you heard of the Waveney Volunteers for Nature?
Yes, I think we've heard. Yeah. I think they got in touch with us.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they're doing tremendous work, and yeah, I mean, obviously they can feed back with you know, a lot of you know, expert information about what they're encountering and the work they're doing and the successes they have and the obstacles they face.
Okay.
But you know, you can. I represent Brockdish Parish Council. You know, you can come through the parish council to reach them.
Brilliant.
Okay.
If that's of interest. But yeah, that sounds like the kind of thing that would be helpful, I assume.
Yes, yeah, definitely. We need to use things like people's local plans and
yeah,
their strategies that are already there to help build the whole picture.
Yeah, good. But yeah, that's more of a statement than a question, I suppose. I mean, the other question on the back of that, I've only been at parish council for a couple of years, but the observation I have is the lack of interest or the lack of participation that I find from people in the community, and partly, I guess we're partly to blame for that. But it seems a bit like the farmers are keeping their heads down, like because they have the biggest impact in the natural environment in our community. I've never once seen a farmer at a parish council meeting. How do we get them to engage with us? Because they're so important in this process. But how do we actually get them to engage? If they don't want to engage, what do you do?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're facing similar questions because as we mentioned, we can't get involved with everybody. We do try. We are working with farm cluster groups. We are working with things like the NGOs who have their farm advisors. So Suffolk Wildlife Trust and Norfolk Wildlife Trust both have those farm advisors. But absolutely, if we don't get engagement from the other side, we can't force it.
No, you can't force it, obviously.
No, but we can continue to promote that. We can think about that as we go further down this process. There will be more and more of these sort of sector workshops. We'll keep updating everybody. So if we feel like there's a way that maybe we could set something that could convene parish councils and land owners in certain areas, that's certainly something we could look to kind of help with. And I think that the more and more that it becomes something that is in the local community, we would hope that more and more people get on board. And as I say, we've got a lot of the really sort of forward-thinking landowners are on board. So if we can start to really get them to show the benefits, and it does have to unfortunately come down to financial and business benefits as well. To actually get more people interested.
You definitely get, you know, and I've lived in the countryside all my life. You get two types of farmer. You get a farmer that really feels passionately about protecting the environment, and others that treat it more like a business, and it seems like the environment is a sideshow for them. You talked about funding, you know, and if you, for example, say you wanted to take turn a pond around, it's going to take money to do that, but they're instrumental in helping that happen. You know, is there a channel of funding for farmers that want to take what was once, a thriving piece of wildlife on their property? You know, all sorts of things, newts and frogs and fish and reeds and a real ecosystem on their property that has been degraded by intensive agriculture for 50 years, but they want to turn it round. Is the funding to help farmers turn that natural environment back round again, or potentially beautiful natural environment back round?
Yes, I mean, I can see Robert's just put a comment in the chat about saying he's a parish councillor and a farmer. So he's got active nature recovery there through the high level stewardship.
Right.
And there are the new schemes available. He's commenting that they're not as easy to access. I mean, we would hope that we can start to help those conversations happen and make everybody understand the new stewardship systems, the sustainable farming, and with biodiversity net gain as well. So, I mean, not all of us are experts in that agricultural and environmental aspect, but we can certainly help to with the partnership to really have a collaborative approach to it. I think that's the overall thing, is we need to have everyone talking. But yes, there are systems out there. They're becoming more and more prevalent and becoming more and more important. So we'd hope to see that improving.
Good. Okay.
And Jen, just to add to that, in terms of like engaging with landowners and farmers, I think it's quite challenging to like engage with everyone. But what we're trying to do, apart from getting them involved in the steering group and the think working groups, we are also trying to attend events that attract landowners and farmers. This is our way. Like, if they don't come to us, we're trying to go to them really and find them. So that's another thing we're trying to do. And by the way, just to add, in terms of like, again, if you have any events in your area that you think are relevant to, like, we can send you like leaflets around LNRS to promote the strategy. Just drop us an email, norfolk@norfolk.gov.uk, and we'll do our best to actually send you some leaflets and promote the strategy in your events.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
I think Bruce
Can I
wants to-
butt in? Hello, sorry, I'm Bruce Fleming. I'm based in Great Melton, which is essentially a big farm with a few houses scattered around. And I empathise with what Adam was saying regarding engagement with farmers. And encouragingly, in our spot, we have actually had more contact with our farm manager of the Great Melton Farms, and invited him along to our annual parish meeting to give us, a background insight into all those sort of aspects, schemes that you've mentioned, et cetera, et cetera. And I really, I know him a little bit, but I approached him, bearing in mind that we have, as a parish council, like every parish council, no doubt, has had to adopt a biodiversity policy as regulatory edict. So that was a good starting point, really, to open the conversation about working in a kind of partnership way. Essentially, the farmers who we as a parish council will rely upon, really, to push the agenda forward. It seems so. So I think that was certainly a nice way in which to open the conversation, and hopefully use that as a starting point to continue engagement. The other thing I'm interested in is to see one of your early slides point out that you're dealing with health, well-being, and that in mind, you're considering those aspects, and you mentioned access as well. And I've got a thing about Norfolk. I don't think we have any number of footpaths that we could have or should have, probably because it's a farm, essentially, and farmers are protective and they don't want you on their fields, et cetera, et cetera. But you go down to Surrey and there are footpaths left, right, and centre. You come to this part of the world, and even in Great Melton, we've got a really wonderful sort of countryside diversity potentially available to all, for health, well-being, et cetera. But it feels really restricted. So that's another point. You mentioned something about recreation of say addressing an old pond area as well. Yes, we're looking at something like that here as well, and access to that sort of thing, for the community, I think would be a really vital development. And the landowner, in fact, has talked about encouraging that and looking at a particular area he has and opening it up for this sort of purpose. And we're wondering about whether we get funding from something like the wind farm, the Hornsey fund that's available as an option to try and develop that initiative and that enterprise. So there are a few things there which interest me. I'm sorry to ramble on, but
No.
I think there are all
Not
sorts of
rambling at all.
ideas like that.
Absolutely. No, it's great to hear what's happening and where people's ideas are. And I think for example, if you think about those funding pots and ideas, then someone like the Wildlife Trust is quite a good contact to have as well, because they will have people that know how to help with supporting for those applications and what's available. And it often turns out that there's a lot of people looking for similar projects, and so that can actually mean they snowball and become a bigger enterprise and actually a bit more successful and effective that way. So yeah, it's good to have those conversations and get involved with anybody that you can.
It'd be really useful actually to gather best practice across our parishes.
Yes.
Are you going to be a reservoir for information in that regard?
I would hope to be, absolutely. Yeah. So the website, as I said, we're designing that to have really, really key updates from the partners and from people that are doing this on the ground. We will have some case studies available to see where people have been successful and how they've gone through that process. But as you say, the feedback we're getting at the moment is that people want that signposting on how to really start some of these things up. So yeah, watch this space. But yeah, at the moment, obviously we're in this really engagement section, and then we'll be starting to think more about how we implement it, where the project really goes.
Was it Holston Parish Council that are particularly in the forefront of this? Am I right?
Well, I work for Brockdish. Sorry to interrupt. Just to be clear, I don't know if Holston's represented on this call or not, but Brockdish is. Myself and Chris, we represent Brockdish, which is in South Norfolk. It is very, sorry, I should clarify, it is very near Holston. Yeah.
Holston's obviously Suffolk, isn't it?
No, Norfolk.
No, Holston's Norfolk as well. So yeah, they're on the border.
I sound like a migrant. I am.
But no, we're aware, and we kind of have links, and our Natural England colleagues are really good at obviously making sure we're aware of other projects that they've been involved with as well. So yeah, it's very much about talking to the right people at the right time.
Any other questions?
What do you think about my rant about footpath access in this county?
Well, I'm Suffolk at the moment, and I do think I've probably got better footpaths than you. But yeah, no, I think there's definitely the question for that. There are projects ongoing. Maria's probably better placed to talk specifically about the Norfolk Walk projects and the footpaths there. But as we said in the sector workshops, we are engaging with the rights of way groups, all the access groups. So we would hope that this is something that's really focused on. We had a community based workshop recently at the forum, and access and public transport and parking was a really key thing actually to make sure we can promote that, to engage with everybody, because we need that first step. We need people to be able to get out there and involved and enjoy it, to actually want to make a difference to it as well. Maria, was there anything else? I can't think what the footpath group's called at the moment off the top of my head.
We have Norfolk Trails, so Norfolk Trails is part of our team, really. I'm not working for Norfolk Trails, but they're involved. They will be involved in the health, well-being and access workshop, and they will give their input on this. So yeah, we're working closely with them.
Definitely.
I have another question.
Yep, go for it.
How do we get the Environment Agency more interested in the quality of our natural environment in this region? Because we're really struggling to get any interest from them.
Okay. I mean,
maybe I'm speaking out of turn, but my experience, we invited them to parish council meetings and they don't attend.
Okay. I mean, we do have quite close links with the Environment Agency. They are really part of the steering group. So, I mean, if that's something specifically, we've probably got quite a good contact who is very active that we could maybe link up with you, or if there's any questions you want to send through to us, and we can direct them the right way.
Then we will be contacting you after this meeting at some point to try to set up some communication. But I mean, forgive me if I'm speaking out of turn, because I'm not directly involved in that line of communication. Just conscious that they haven't attended when we've asked them to. So
no, that's absolutely fine. We can help. Can't promise, but we can certainly help to make those links.
Tremendous. Thank you.
Anything else from anyone? obviously, if you think of something later on after the webinar, if you want to send it through to us, we'll make sure it gets to the team, or you can go direct to the team. We can field it from there if necessary. If there's no other questions, I think we'll say a big thank you to Jen and Maria for coming along this evening and using their evening time to attend this webinar for you. I'd like to thank you all for coming. I hope you've enjoyed it. If there's anything else that you'd like us to do webinars on or anything in the future, please let us know, and we'll get in touch and see whether we can get them on for you. And with that, I bid you all a good evening. The rest of it that's left.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Thank you
having
very
us,
much
Sarah.
indeed.
Thanks.
Thank
Thank
you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.